Is it possible that we all might be stuck in an infinitely looped cycle of returning to life after death, but as different people? Not like ghostly body snatchers jumping from body to body, but actual born-again humans with some kind of spiritual or ethereal energy carried on from the last life, but that's somehow uniquely identifiable in each subsequent life. And I know what you're saying right now, you mean reincarnation, bro? Yeah, it has a name. But before we jump into the reincarnation aspect of this conversation, I want to first look at something I feel might help better personify this idea, and that is a classification system called archetypes. What is an archetype? An archetype is something that can be explained at various different levels of understanding. To keep it simple, it's a typical example of a person or a thing, but don't confuse this with your subjective prejudices. The typical quote-unquote things are usually objectively identifiable. To give a better example, let's use Street Fighter. We'll say Ryu, Ken, Akuma and Dan all share a similar physical archetype based on the fighting moves they use. But their personalities would all fall into different archetypes based around their most dominant characteristics and emotional tendencies. You could create a subcategory for the physical phenotypes of their bodies and a main category for their personalities and emotional traits. Now, there are obviously a limited amount of archetypes a priori. If there was an unlimited amount, they wouldn't be archetypes. So, what are some mainstream examples of these archetypes? There are the 12 personality types according to Jung, and they are as follows: the ruler, the creator/artist, the sage, the innocent, the explorer, the rebel, the hero, the wizard, the jester, the everyman, the lover, the caregiver. And it doesn't just stop with humans, it also translates over to the design of things like companies and brands. After all, a corpse is an entity, isn't it? The use of these archetypes can also come into play negatively by manipulators and sometimes businessmen. They are used to control the perception of how you want a customer to view your company or brand. Needless to say, where there is money to be made, there are opinions to be swayed. Regardless, if you want to know more about the mainstream established archetypes in psychology, you can do a quick Google and ask, what are Jung's archetypes? Some people claim these archetypes existed even pre-psychoanalysis, and cataloguers of these typical traits say that they can tell everything about you once they identify your archetype. Others claim by using a combined system of math, astronomy and those typical traits, they can see into your future, past and present through a zodiac type of profiling. And the reason their customers tend to believe in these kinds of readings is because of a thing called the Barnum effect. In short, the Barnum effect is a person's natural tendency to think that a generic or vague personality description applies specifically to themselves.
That's how we went for thousands of years, believing that the universe actually cares about us, and it cares about who you are, and your social life, and your financial life. And then we learned, no, the Earth is not in the middle of it all. We orbit the sun like the other planets. And these constellations, which are really sorry excuses for what they're pretending to be. Sagittarius, really, is that what we're drawing here? And you're not only going to draw that, you're going to put personality traits in. By the way, and the people who came up with this are sleepless Babylonians, Romans, and Greeks, right? They're not getting any sleep. So they wake up, oh, I got a story. They tell the story, they put it in the sky, name gods after it. And now you're going to say that the stories of these sleepless civilizations have such meaning that these stars in your night sky, which would look different from any other angle, somehow know that you were born and wants to influence you.
On to this week's numbers. I see the winner living in a house, and the number is on the door.
Truly awe-inspiring, wacky stuff. But let's just imagine if we really are, let's say, 12 people, like the 12 Gregorian months would have it, or the 12 biblical tribes, that just keep getting reincarnated as different people who populate the earth throughout history. Personally, I think that would really suck, especially in terms of free will, individuality and autonomy. But on the other hand, it might be pretty cool to rely on another chance at life for however many simulation cycles, but for what? I don't know. Without dragging God into this as a get out of jail free card, why wipe the psychological memory card if we're going to keep doing New Game Plus with spiritual save data? Observably, your brain's memory is stored in your physical vessel, so to carry that over to a new body, among other things, wouldn't make sense until we quantum compute our immortality, that is.
For AIs, the structure of the neural network is represented in the software, but the physical basis is still transistors lined up on microchips. In the human brain, in contrast, the network is a physical thing. It's one with the algorithm that runs on it. This difference is what scientists and engineers want to remove with the neuromorphic computers. These are built to resemble a human brain in terms of hardware, not just in terms of the algorithm that runs on it.
But, in good faith, I guess I can practically imagine you save data in the game of life by making a mark on the earth through creating things and affecting the lives of others. That's metaphorically sound. But this ether-like energy that is unique to a reincarnated archetype doesn't carry over a human-based memory. So why would it need to keep being the same person? If this obviously speculative theory has any merit, there is a very small possibility of coming into contact with the work you've done in your previous life, unless of course you believe in a very specific variety of reincarnation that lasers in on what family you'll be born to, at what time and space, or if you'll even be human in the next life at all.
I don't understand. Well, it's strange, but right before I destroyed the evil final form of Boo, I made a request. I asked him to come back as a good person so we could fight together. Apparently, King Yama heard my request and decided to make it happen.
Wait, hold on. You're saying that this boy is Boo?
Mm-hmm. I'm almost certain. And there's a pretty significant clue. Just look at his name. It's UUB. That's Boo spelled backwards. Bizarre, huh? Ooh is the final form of Boo, reincarnated.
Did you hear that?
Yes, it's crazy.
This video is sponsored by the Culture Crack Spring Store. To access the store, all you need to do is click the link in the description or head over to YouTube. In the search bar, type @Culture Crack, all one word, go to the main channel, go over to the tab that says store, and then you have access to all the goodies available to you. And don't forget, please like, share and subscribe. Although there are conspiracy theories surrounding this phenomenon of reincarnation, with kids claiming they know exactly who they were in the last life, and of course adults linking it all back to aliens and government conspiracies, it doesn't mean reincarnation is some impossible hoax. We just don't know what happens after we die. But what if it is possible and you end up some blade of grass or some solitary microorganism wriggling around amongst bacteria? After all, who is making up the rules? However auspicious your particular version of this idea is, the overall concept is certainly not new and has been attributed to various ancient cultures on Earth throughout history. Fortunately or unfortunately, as humans, we are the ones running this petri dish called Earth, so we create stories to explain ideas and theories, and they inform the systems of thought that precede them.
You're right, eh? All the past avatars, all their experience and wisdom is available to you if you look deep inside yourself.
So where am I, Roku? What is this place?
What's that saying? There's nothing new under the sun. And if that theory is right, neither are you and neither am I, and we've never had an original thought or an original experience. It's all already happened, like a simulation ran trillions of times in a different life and a different OS skin.
If you're going from a causal potential state and become actualized, then the tree doesn't return to a seed state. So how is it possible to go from an actualized back to potential in order to see a cycle of reincarnation?
Now, although I clearly have my doubts about the reincarnation belief system, as with most systems it's very easy to poke holes in, I don't intend to make mockery of it or its believers. Instead, to avoid further offense, I like to look at it through a lens of, you guessed it, an anime, and extract the good ideas embedded in its metaphorical ore. And being that Asia has a very rich history and culture that consists of these ideas found in Buddhism and Hinduism, it's no surprise the idea of reincarnation can be found in lots of works of fiction and real historical accounts. But for this episode, we're going to focus on one particular anime, and you guessed it, it's Naruto. But wait, there's more. Before I give you the rundown of Naruto's interpretation of reincarnation, let's first go over some basics so we're on the same track. What is reincarnation? In short, the rebirth of a soul or spirit into another body. Where does this idea come from? Although there is evidence that indicates similar ideas cropping up in various other cultures and belief systems throughout history, it's widely thought that the popular version of this belief comes from Hinduism. Why does reincarnation happen? Much like New Age believers might interpret this as energy not being able to die but only transmute, the core tenet is that the spirit or soul is eternal and cannot die, so it returns in a new body, be it human or animal. What is karma? In Hinduism and Buddhism, it's believed that the sum of a person's actions in this existence is used to judge the outcome of future existences. What is a karmic cycle? Some people believe it is the repetition of events and emotions that occur in a lifetime meant for you to obtain specific wisdom in a specific area before the cycle can be broken. So does karma affect reincarnation? Subjectively speaking, based on what we have seen in the previous definitions, it's likely karma is the driving force of luck or unluck in your reincarnation process.
All the Buddhists and all the Hindus and all the Jainas and all the Sikhs, they're all agreed on the fact that there is karma and reincarnation. So you see how karma leads to reincarnation. That part is clear. Because if there is no previous existence, then all this disparity cannot be explained. And if there is no future existence, then all the karma that we are doing and we have done in the past, where do the results go?
So, with some of the most frequently asked questions out of the way, let's have a look at the way the anime Naruto interprets the idea of reincarnation. In the anime Naruto Shippuden, there is a meta-narrative of mythical and religious subtext hidden beneath the fantastical jutsu and battle sequences. Besides the more obvious references to Asian culture and history with the characters' names and stories, a plotline begins to unravel towards the end of the show as the writers begin to explain who Naruto really is in the grand scheme of things and why he and Sasuke, like Madara and Hashirama, were always destined to clash.
I was able to set up a pattern of fighting and power-seeking. Time after time, I'd approach the reincarnates of Indra and Ashura in each clan to attempt Rinnegan manifestation.
So around 1,000 years before the story of Naruto takes place, a giant seed crash lands on Earth and becomes a tree. Following shortly after is a humanoid-like alien by the name of Kaguya. This woman called Kaguya ends up being the mother of all chakra and reluctantly claims she is tasked with being the guardian of the tree. What's revealed even later in the sequel show Boruto is that this tree comes from some pretty selfish aliens who intend to suck the life force from the planet into a fruit that the tree produces, then consume that fruit to boost their own individual powers. Where have we heard this setup scheme before?
Once I eat it, I'll be unstoppable! Keep on dreaming, because that'll never happen with me around! You haven't been able to stop me so far.
The woman is introduced to the humans and ends up living among them for a time. She has two half-human children, Hamura and Hagoromo. Each have their own superpowers inherited from their mother, which eventually becomes the abilities ninjas use in the future. Without spoiling the show too much more, the mother Kaguya ends up trying to control the world, and unfortunately her two sons end up sealing her in a rock formation that becomes the moon.
Catastrophic planetary devastation!
After the long battles between the family were done, the two sons separate, with Hamura deciding to go to the moon to watch over their mother, and Hagoromo deciding to stay on Earth and spread his idea of peace to make amends for his mother's actions. He becomes a wandering priest who creates a ninshu, a type of religion or way of life similar to Buddhism, and goes about sharing chakra with humans and builds up a following. He later becomes known as the Sage of the Six Paths. After roaming the land and helping people, Hagoromo eventually has his own two sons, Ashura and Indra. One is a super genius of chakra and becomes exponentially powerful by creating jutsu, and the other is called a dunce in the show, but is really a good guy who connects with people and is great at socializing. The smart son Indra gets manipulated by a dark force, which was the third son of Kaguya, while the other son struggles to obtain any real power by himself and relies on his friends. students. You see where this is going, right? The father Hagoromo decides that he needs to pick a successor for his school and challenges the two sons to go out into the world and help people with ninshu, and when they return, he will decide who will be the successor. So the two sons go out into the world and help people in their respective ways. One helps people with his power alone, and the other helps people by building communal power. When they return, Ashura gets picked as a successor, as his ideals of communal power were better aligned with the idea of ninshu that Hagoromo had. Indra, who was the first in line to be the successor, becomes angry and starts to plot his revenge with his power. The power of the six paths eventually gets given to Ashura. The two sons fight for a long time and eventually go their separate ways. When they eventually die, their spirits continue to fight against each other generation after generation and lifetime after lifetime of reincarnation.
You've always feared the power my grandmother possessed. But instead of trying to understand that enormous power, you merely ran from it, using ideas such as love and bonds as a shield. Your selfish, naive misconceptions will mar the future of Ninshu with wars and disasters. Until I'm able to destroy Ashura and all of his brethren, and wipe your failed ideas of Ninshu from the face of this world, I won't stop fighting. Until then, my soul will reincarnate and fight, however long it takes.
In one generation, Indra is born as Madara and Asura born as Hashirama. They start out as good friends, they build the shinobi world, but they ultimately end up as enemies. In the next generation, Indra is born as Sasuke and Ashura born as Naruto. These two ultimately collaborate in the end to bring an end to the cycle of fighting as siblings. Well, kind of. I say kind of because even though Naruto and Sasuke are still alive in Boruto, the same energies that possess them and their ancestors are present in Boruto and Kawaki. Lastly, although I left out a tremendous amount of detail in the Naruto story, hopefully you now grasp a better idea of what reincarnation is and the implications of what a karmic cycle might look like on Earth. So is reincarnation an exclusively Hindu belief then? Well, kind of, but not really. To simplify a dense metaphorical concept, let's imagine Christians are waiting for Christ to return after he died on the cross and rose again, then disappeared, right? So, if he's been here before and physically died, surely if he comes back again, he would be a reincarnation if he's not able to be in the same body that died on the cross, right? That probably scrambled some eggs, so let's look a little bit closer at what beliefs actually are. Personal beliefs and interpretations of mainstream beliefs are very individual and subjective. Although most belief systems are based on core ideas passed down in history, people generally tend to pick and mix what best suits their ideals and perception of reality, even if they belong to a specific religious group. Now, I'm going to try to paraphrase a quite famous quote. It goes, "Religion is like a personal computer. You can let people in and use it, but you don't have to." Now let's unpack this metaphor a little bit more. In order to have the hardware that forms a computer, various different ideas, processes and materials need to amalgamate to give you, for an example, a motherboard or a hard drive. And once you get your hardware, you need an operating system for the software, so all the hardware can send signals to each other and operate in unison. In computer language, that would be binary code. But keeping with the metaphor, an individual belief system is like an operating system. So once all these ideas come together, you can begin to design and edit both the software interface and add extra hardware to the base model to your liking. But let's not forget, very different people with very different ideas and walks of life came together to make the individual components that form your computer. And those individual components often came from other inventions but were repurposed to fit this particular project, which is your computer. Much like a lot of the ideas and principles that form belief systems are repurposed from other systems of thought. So it's no surprise a Christian belief system, for example, much like how the English language was formed, takes pieces from other systems, different software programs, different pieces of hardware to suit the end user.
In Matthew, Jesus actually explains twice to some of his disciples that John the Baptist has been the prophet Elijah in a previous lifetime. Why would Jesus teach reincarnations to his disciples? Jesus was a Jew, and so were all his disciples. And for many Jews at the time, reincarnation was a fact of life. It was mentioned in the ancient mystical text of the Kabbalah that teaches the soul cycle, also called the Gilgal Neshamot. Even today we have several Jewish denominations that believe in reincarnation, like the Hasidics, the Shabbatniks, and other Orthodox Jewish groups.
Now, once dogma is removed, who's to say if a belief is right or wrong? After all, a belief is not something tangible, it's a subjective thought process that isn't even required to be based in reality. Additionally, if you find yourself troubled by what is right or wrong or moral or immoral, I would remind you that those ideas are as subjective as beliefs themselves. Historically, both theist and atheist people have studied human behavior using psychology, biology, and philosophy, and with personal beliefs aside, no one has been able to pin down the intangible ideas that go on inside of a human mind. Put simply, if we can't grasp what consciousness even is, we can't objectively prove beliefs even exist in comparison to tangible laws of the observable universe like gravity.
Am I not a little bit more than just those fundamental particles? Where's my consciousness come from? Whatever happened to my soul? Personally, I don't think that to describe our observations, our experience of us thinking requires anything more than particle physics. I'm happy to leave the understanding of consciousness to neurobiologists or whatever those fields are called, but I also don't think that we need to add anything to the fundamental laws of nature that we have collected in physics. I think it's sufficient.
And how do we know the brain is you? Because you can stroke out. Bits by bits of your brain, we do the scan of the brain and the whole sections that just shut down. And as that happens, if it's a multiple strokes rather than one massive stroke, as that happens, you lose the ability to speak, you lose knowledge of who you are, of where you, all the things that we associate with you, lose your personality. And in the limit, none of your brain works except the basal motor functions that keep your heart alive. You're still alive. Where's your soul now?
Yes, of course, you can believe an observable fact is true, but you can also believe an observable fact is false. After all of this is taking place in your personal mind. A popular philosophical theory suggests that the only thing you can really be sure of is that you exist based on your perception of reality. After all, you could in fact be a brain in a jar somewhere having a hallucination you're experiencing as a life. As an example of this subjective reality, you can't guarantee the person next to you sees the same colour we both identify as red the same way. You might see it lighter and they might see it darker. In linguistics, there's a somewhat debunked theory that things don't even exist until they have a name, and historically, different descriptions and names of the colour blue have been used to back up that particular theory. It was once posited that the absence of any words describing the colour blue in ancient Greek epics was grounds to believe that human eyes were either not yet able to see the colour blue or it didn't exist yet. The reason this was posited is that there were descriptive words found in these texts for other colours which would indicate the writer was aware of the concept of colours but neglected to make remark on any blues in his world. Now obviously this doesn't mean that blue didn't exist, it just means he was either unwilling to describe anything using the colour blue or he had a different vocabulary based on the perception of what the colour blue was to him. So I'm saying subjectively, wrong and right, like red and blue, are just societal constructs that vary from place to place and person to person. So I don't see why you can't have a mixed bag of beliefs if you want. After all, a human just like you came up with them in the first place. The only problem that would occur and has historically is when someone wants to force someone else to see things their way. Imagine you were minding your business one day, painting your wall grey, and a stranger comes by and at gunpoint forces you to accept the grey paint you personally mixed is actually blue. Here we go again. You can see the problem here, right? Now, although the person may actually see blue, their perception of reality doesn't necessarily correspond with yours. To support their idea that the colour is blue, you might say, well, they're just observing the observable universe, but you'd be wrong, as what they see isn't scientifically falsifiable or reproducible. It's just an opinion from their perspective. So, let's just let people paint their walls in peace, as long as they don't force you to change your walls, right? Maybe, I don't know if that'll work either historically. But to summarize, is there tangible proof that reincarnation exists? No. But is it wrong to believe that it does? No. So you tell me what you think. Have you found enough data that provides evidence for reincarnation? Or is it just something that is a cool idea to believe and another way to explain creation? Let me know what you think.
Well, Goku, I can't tell you how much I appreciate everything. You changed my life.
Hey, don't thank me. I got just as much out of it as you did.
Really?
Yeah, you're a great teacher.
That's funny, Goku. I'll see you fellas later. Take care!
Thank you for making it to the end of the video. QR code on the screen, feel free to donate, and don't forget you can click here to check out our latest videos. Until next time, let's hunt.